I'm Jimmy Ruth Wilson. I was born in 1937. I think I was the last one born at home, as I remember being told about it. And I think the three that were born after me were born in hospital, but as I understand it, all the rest of us were born at home. And I was told I was born on a windy, stormy night. Because I was born at the other house that they call the Junction Place, where the family lived, and I really don't have any recollection of living at that house, but it was kind of on a hilltop, and I don't recall the house, and I don't know what room there. I've been told that I was about 2 years old, so I think we had kind of decided that the farmhouse must have been finished in about 38 or 39, but I would have been 2 years old in March of 39. And then I think that we were already in that house when the next was born, when Carolyn was born. But I think that she was born at the hospital, at the Coleman Hospital. Well, growing up at the farmhouse, I remember vaguely Vita and Patty being there. I have a lot of memories. I can kind of remember one time Vita chasing David through the house, and I think that was the time that she was mad at him about something and chasing him, and she was trying to kick him out the door and missed and hit her little toe on the door. And either broke her little toe or sprained it badly. But, and I remember getting in the car. You know, we were a bunch of people riding in one car when we'd get ready to go into town. And so very often us little ones would be sitting on the lap of somebody else. And I remember we'd usually play possum on the way home if we were driving home in the evening. And if we didn't fall asleep, we'd play like we were so that we'd get carried from the car to the house. And, I remember growing up there, during the summers especially, we'd go barefoot a lot of the time. And I don't know now whether I'd allow my children to go barefoot on the farm or not, but I don't really recall getting lots of stickers or such as that, but we'd go barefoot a lot through the summertime out on the farm. And we did play a lot outdoors. And you know, we didn't have central heat and air at that time, but it didn't really seem to bother us. I guess we were just used to it. But we did play outdoors a lot. And I remember building, we'd have cars and get out and just in the dirt and build our little roadways and play villages and stuff like that, and we played a lot on the front porch, and we skated a lot. That's one of the things I like to do out on the front porch. We'd skate back and forth, and it was big enough that was fun to do. Though I did fall and break my arm one time skating on the porch, and that was really an experience. Daddy took me in the truck to the doctor, and the doctor did have to set my arm, which was an experience then. I can kind of remember, I guess he laid me under kind of a x-ray machine of sorts, and the doctor says, well, this is going to hurt a little bit, and he pressed on my arm and I guess just got it mashed back in place, and it did hurt a little bit, a lot. But I guess he did a good job because I've never had any problem with it or anything. And and then another thing we played out on the porch was hide and seek. I can remember going to those little columns at either end of the porch, and we'd stick our face in there and count and then play hide and seek along there a lot. And of course we played down along the creek a lot, and we'd play Tarzan and Jane a lot, because when we'd go in town to the movies, there was always a serial that ran. You'd have an episode each week, and one of them was Tarzan and Jane. So we'd play Tarzan and Jane a lot down on the river, and then cowboy and Indian stuff, because that was a lot of the type movies that we saw at that time. Oh, another thing, I don't know, somebody may have already told you about, but we usually did go in, we went to school at Lost Creek School, and we did usually go into town on Saturdays. That was the big thing to look forward to. Saturday was usually Help Mama Clean House Day in the morning. And then she'd start getting us all cleaned up and ready to go to town. And I know she used to be pleased that people would usually comment to her about how nice her children looked, that she just got us all cleaned up and dressed up to go into town and to go to the movie. And so she'd get us all dressed, and then we were supposed to stay out of trouble while she'd get herself dressed and ready to go into town. So we usually would go to the kitchen and dance. And we'd turn the radio on, and we'd dance to whatever music was on there. We listened to a lot of country western music, and we liked that. And then we listened to a lot of just popular music, too. And so we'd get in line, and I guess I remember mostly Grace and myself and Carolyn doing this. And we just get in line in the kitchen and start some music, and we just sort of dance, and then we'd kind of take turns going to the forefront and do our little thing, and then come back to the line, and the next person would go out and dance something or other. And so that was fun. And we also had fun with music. It was our job to do dishes at home all the time. Mama usually did most of the cooking. And I feel like we didn't really learn to cook all that much because I felt like Mama would rather have us out from underfoot while she could prepare the meals. But then it was our job to clean up. And so we'd wash and dry dishes. And so we usually were singing that whole time that we were doing dishes, and not necessarily to the radio, but sometimes just whatever we decide to sing. Like I say, we knew a lot of country and western music, and we used to also listen to the hit parade. It was on radio. It eventually became a television show for a while, but we'd listen to the hit parade, and it would always play like the top 10 or however many tunes, and that was mostly, I think, popular music. And so we listened to a lot of both kinds of music. Well, I guess growing up, I remember spending more time with Grace and Carolyn. I do remember David being around a lot, and we joke about how he used to pop us with a kitchen dish towel when we were doing dishes, and we thought he tried to torture us quite a bit. He'd do that calf something or other you call it on the knee, grab us by the knee and make us jump. And so that was fun. And and then he likes to grab you by the head and rub your head, But I guess I remember doing things with Grace. One thing that Grace and I did during one period of time was help down at the dairy. And our job would be to put feed out for the next milking time. And so I guess we'd do this just in the afternoon. We didn't do it mornings, I don't believe. But we go down in the afternoon, and we kind of take turns. And one would shovel the feed from this room where it was stored over into this trough that ran the length of the dairy. And then the cattle would be brought into stalls where they could eat from this trough while they were being milked. And so whichever one was there would then shovel the feed to each end until they got the trough filled with the food. So that was kind of our job. I felt like I was sort of the quiet child that was in between Grace and Carolyn because they were both personality people. And we used to laugh. Grace called herself Cowborn Gracie a lot of the time because she would do a good bit, down at the barn. And for the most part, Daddy didn't want us playing down there because they had inspectors who would come at any time unannounced. And so the barn was always supposed to be clean and ready for inspection. So he didn't want us especially playing down there. So it seemed like most of the time we'd be down there is when we were helping with this putting out the feed. And then Carolyn was the one just younger than me, and she was always a personality person and called herself the boss. And so, I felt like I grew up between the two extrovert sisters, and I was kind of more the introvert. I started wanting to play piano, and I guess I must have been about fifth grade, maybe somewhere along in there, when I started being interested in trying to play piano, because we did have piano in the house. And I think at that time, Daddy wasn't too interested in paying for me to have piano lessons, because he had paid for Vita and Patty to take piano. And I don't know, I guess they just didn't really take to it that much, or at that time. I think Patty especially played some later on. She kind of went back to it and played some. But anyway, they started teaching me to play piano. And there was a good bit of music there at the house, I guess left over from when they had taken lessons. And so they taught me how to read notes. And so I could play a piece if I knew how it went, but they didn't teach me how to read time. And so it was more difficult if I picked up a piece I didn't know anything about how it went, because I hadn't learned how to read the time. So, but I did learn to play a good bit of the popular sheet music. And then I did go on to take piano a couple of years. And so I've enjoyed playing piano. And we used to have fun too. We'd gather around the piano and sing quite often, different ones of the family. And we'd sing mostly popular music and sometimes some hymns. And then I went through a period where I got to where I could play well enough, and I played for Daddy's quartets some. And he was always very good in music, and he could read music. He learned to read shaped notes, and he was always getting a new quartet book, and this was mainly the old Stamps quartet music. So he would get a new book, and he'd go sit down in his chair and look through the book, and as say, he could read the music, and he would write down in the front or the very back of the book the numbers of pieces he thought he was interested in. And then he'd say, well, come on, Ruthie, let's go to the piano. And so then I would try to play them. So my main thing at piano was I was a good sight reader when I did finally learn to read both the notes and the time. And so then we'd go back and practice them. And so I used to go very often with him to different places where they were having singings, and I'd play for some of the music while we were at the singings, and then I'd play for quartets that he sang in. And for a while they were singing on Sunday mornings over the Coleman radio, so we'd go out to the radio station and do their program. I never did learn to play real well. Like, he would love to have had someone who could just really bang out that piano in the old Stamps quartet style. And I don't play by ear, so I really kind of think you need to be able to do that a bit to play that way, or you needed to be in with a teacher who could lead you in that direction more, I guess. But I would love to have been able to play that way. But I didn't really learn how to improvise or such, but did enjoy piano music. Well, forever. It's a good thing to know. It's good good to just play, and good for your nerves and your.
It's a good skill to have.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, in Jim's quartet singing, what part would he sing?
Oh, he was tenor. Yeah, he would sing tenor, and they very often had an all men's quartet, or sometimes they would have one woman who was usually alto, and now he sang with Lowell's dad John Dix was a good bass, and they sang in a quartet together. And oh goodness, Charlie, can't remember Charlie's last name right now, that sang with them a lot. And I think he wasn't really as much a trained musician as Daddy and Mr. Dix were, but he loved to sing, so he could learn the pieces quickly. And another Neil Smith and his wife, I can't remember his wife's name right now, but they sang a lot with Daddy and his quartets. But yeah, Daddy was a good tenor. One of the things that we used to do out at the house was play Murder in the Dark. And oh, that was scary to me. And I think the other kids just loved to do it because it scared me so. But, you know, at the farmhouse, we had this long hall down through the center of the house. And so we'd get in that room and close all the doors so that it was very, very dark. And I was kind of scared of the dark anyway, I think. But anyway, one person would be it. And so the one person is supposed to murder somebody. And then you try to decide who did it, I think. I can't remember really how much the way the game went. I just remember being scared to death. Anyway, so finally somebody would attack somebody and somebody would scream and fall down. And so then we could open the doors up and see who had been murdered and then try to determine who it was. Well, we did that so much that I didn't really want to be in that hall that much when it was dark. And one of the things about in our house, the front bedroom, you kind of graduated to it as you got older. And so the older, usually two girls, would share that front bedroom. Well, I really didn't know if I wanted to have that privilege or not because you had to go through that dark hallway back and forth to get to that bedroom. So anyway, that was just a silly thing, I guess. But it was fun to play, but it did always make me real scared.
Do you think, was that a game you all invented, or was it a game
I don't know.
Or do you have any idea where it came from?
I don't know. Yeah, you'll have to see if anybody else, I guess, can tell you more about Murder in the Dark. But it seems like I remember, David was in on it, and Grace, and I think Carolyn, and maybe Marguerite. I can't remember for sure who all, but there had to be several of you in there playing it, you know. And so that was kind of a fun thing. And we would go to the movies because that was our Saturday afternoon thing. And we'd usually go to the Dixie Theater, which had usually a Western. And then it would have this serial that I was talking about. They'd have a serial each week that left you with a cliffhanger thing, you know, till the next week. And so I guess that was probably one of the movies we were seeing when Carolyn decided to get up and leave. And I guess that may have been the time that she was found, and it was election night, and they had a big platform out on the street, and she shows up, you know, by herself. But like I say, I don't have real great memory of that, but that did happen. I do remember them talking about her showing up there at the platform, and I'm not sure if she told them who. She probably told them she was either Terna Hotsis, which was the way she said her name for a while, or she may have told them she was the boss. I'm not sure who she started trying to tell them she was when they were trying to determine who this little girl was wandering around on the street. Mama would at times cook for people that were working on the farm. I remember one time we did have a crop of cotton in the field right behind the house. And that was really my only experience with ever trying to pick cotton. And I think Daddy just kind of let us do it just to, you know, give us something to do and say we had done that along with the other farm hands that were out picking cotton for him. But that was kind of fun to get to do. And I don't know whether any of us got a bag full or not, but we did a little picking of cotton. And so, yeah, Mama would be cooking for them. And, well, I don't know. I think her life was just pretty much full with taking care of all the family and cooking and all. And I remember she would go into town to a laundry each week and have a big load of laundry to do. And she usually then would bring it back home and hang it out. She'd have lines. There were some lines just to the south side of the house, and then some more out on the south and west portion of the house. And then usually when we'd come home, we'd help bring the laundry in and fold. And goodness, then she would sprinkle and iron everything. I mean, she ironed jeans and ironed them with a crease down the middle. The men expected to have their jeans creased, I think, at that time. And so I remember there would be probably 2 afternoons a week that we'd come home from school, and Mama would be ironing at this ironing board we had that folded down out of the wall into the dining room. And she'd be ironing and very often listening to the soap operas or listening to music on the radio. And I think she even listened to Young Dr. Malone back at that time and maybe Days of Our Lives. But she'd listen to them. And then I remember as we got older, well, that was also part of our job, was to help with ironing. And goodness, we'd even iron pillowcases and everything, just about everything. And so thank goodness polyester fabrics came along, or polycotton, and you didn't have to iron things so much anymore. You know, like my iron very rarely gets plugged in these days, but at that time, you ironed everything. Well, our family reunions are great gatherings, and we all feel like they're very important to our family. And we have done them so many years now, and we've been having them every year. And I know at times we've had the conversation of should we stop and just have them every other year. And most everyone, though, when we quiz about that, decide no, don't have it every other year, because then if I have to miss a year, I miss nearly 3 or 4 years before we get together again. So they don't especially want to stop having them every year, although we know everybody can't come every time, and that's fine. But we just want everyone to come who can, as often as they can. And we did start meeting at the farmhouse, and then started going to state parks, and have had great fun there. And then in recent years, we've met more often at the farmhouse since Collier and Ann have refurbished the farmhouse, and I think the family enjoys that. I think the grandchildren really enjoy meeting at the farmhouse and kind of getting to see where we grew up and hear stories about things that we did at the farmhouse. And we just feel like it's really very important, because since we are a big family, I just feel like, how in the world would I ever see a lot of these family members if we didn't have family reunion? Because, we see brothers and sisters a bit more, but it's hard to connect with your nephews and nieces. And now all of them have family, and we're starting to get into another generation, and it's just nearly impossible to really stay in close touch with all the family. And I think it is wonderful that our family has enjoyed being together. We've had our family reunion every year, and then we kind of branched off to doing what we call our grade 8 trips, which is just mainly our brothers and sisters and spouses. And we started doing those mainly like every other year, and we do those in addition to doing the family reunion. And I can remember when I was working and I'd be getting ready to go on a grade 8 trip, and we did wonderful cruise trips together and different things like that. And would be telling my workmates, well, I'm going on a cruise to such and such a place. And they'd say, oh, are y'all just going alone? And I'd say, no, I'm going with my brothers and sisters and their spouses. And they say, you're taking a trip with your brothers and sisters? And, And I just couldn't believe it. I'd say, well, of course. And we just always have great fun together. And I feel like it's just a shame that there are so many families that just don't have enough fun together that they would want to consider, spending their money to go on a trip and be with their own family members. And that's just a shame. I'm just so glad that our family has all remained close. And I just hope that all the children and the grandchildren will continue to have fun together and be able to get together often enough that they feel like they know each other.